This is the Ducati Panigale V2S, and it has a small problem. You see, this is the least powerful sports bike Ducati has ever made, but for some people, that might be a good thing. In fact, I reckon this could be the best sports bike Ducati has ever made. Don't adjust your browser. Nope, it's not broken. We are doing a bike review today. This is the Panigale V2S from Ducati. Actually, you gotta say Ducati, not Ducati or Ducati. You gotta say Ducati with the American accent. Sounds cool, doesn't it?
This Ducati is a middleweight sports bike, the baby brother of the extremely rapid Panigale V4 range of superbikes, the Cayman GT4 to the bigger, madder V4's Aventador SVJ. Less power, but with plenty of speed and agility, making it more approachable, in theory.
But there is a fine line between approachability and just being underwhelming. And if you look at this bike's key component, its engine, you might think that Ducati have strayed a little bit too far into the world of underwhelming. For this second generation V2, Ducati's decided, or maybe they've been forced by emissions regulations, you decide, to reduce the engine size from 955cc on the previous V2 to 890cc. And that means less power. So where the old bike made 155 horses, this one only makes 120. And that, my friends, makes this the least powerful Ducati Panigale sports bike ever.
That will be slightly upsetting for some people because we live in a world where manufacturers constantly crave improvement, and the most obvious means of doing so is to deliver more power. Or at the very least, the same power as what came before alongside other incremental improvements. But here is a vehicle that in power terms is objectively worse. So it's gonna be rubbish, right?
Nope, it's the very opposite of rubbish. For a start, 120 horsepower is a fair chunk, especially when you're riding on top of it. There's plenty of grunt in this thing, enough to scare you silly. And the power is really accessible. You don't have to ride it like a lunatic for it to feel fast. It's not a screamer though. Ducati's normally rev really high. The red line in a V4 comes in at what, 14,500? Here, peak power comes in at 10,200 and the rev limit is 11.5. So there's less power, yeah, but it feels as if you get easier access to the power. Day-to-day riding, it definitely doesn't feel any slower. Not to me anyway.
And that's partly because of a little thing called weight. In order to give customers a similar feeling with less overt grunt, they've put this Panigale on a crash diet. It has a brand new monocoque frame, which by itself only weighs 4 kilograms. The engine weighs 54.5 kilograms, 9.4 less than the one it replaces. And there are lightweight components like a double-sided swing arm with cutouts aimed at reducing mass, and a lithium-ion battery. All in, this Panigale V2S is just 175 kilograms with fluids excluding fuel, 15 kilograms lighter than the previous generation.
So the power to weight ratio, while being lower than before, is still excellent. It's about 680 horsepower per ton. And if we're putting that in car terms, the Aventador SVJ I mentioned earlier, that would be around 475 horsepower per ton. The Cayman GT4, less than 300 horsepower per ton. No contest really. And this is meant to be the baby Ducati. This thing absolutely flies. Let's go. So we do have something to be excited about. We'll get back on the road in just a second and figure out how that reduction in weight affects the riding and the handling. But for the moment, let's just take a minute to soak this bike up because it's gorgeous, isn't it? Ducati make the best looking sports bikes, don't at me. I love the Ducati red, the gold elements on the suspension, the black. I love pretty much everything about the looks of this bike. But there's one thing that surprises me about it, and that is the ergonomics. If you take a look at it in profile, what you'll see is that the handlebars are actually significantly higher than the base of the seat. And what that means is the riding position isn't as aggressive as you might expect.
So on a V4, for example, the big boy, the bars are really low in comparison to the seat. So you're riding around face down, ass up, in a very extreme riding position. But in this, it's actually a lot more comfortable than you might expect. On the pegs as well, my legs aren't bent backwards all the way, which means that it's a fairly lazy, laid-back riding experience. The seat comfort isn't too bad. Not as good as a car, I will admit, or even some touring bikes, but for a sports bike, you can actually hop on this and go for a quick ride or a 2-hour motorway trip without feeling like the bike's beating you up. More highlights, the V2S has some of the best suspension in the game. Öhlins Nix 30 on the front, finished in glorious gold. Massively expensive. These alone will be the price of a decent second-hand car, plus monoshocks on the back, all fully adjustable. Get your spanner out and you can change the settings all you want. It's got two 320mm semi-floating brake discs up front with a 245mm disc at the rear. And then we have electronics, all accessed via this 5-inch TFT dash. Here you can choose from various ride modes, wet, road, sport, race, each with different levels of power or safety assistance. Select the mode you want and choose your level of engine power, the amount of wheelie control you want, ABS, and a lot more. One thing I'll have a moan about is that even though this is quite a high-end bike from a high-end manufacturer, it doesn't come with some of the features that you get on even low-end cars. For example, why don't you get cruise control as standard? It has the cruise control buttons on the bars, but they don't do anything unless you pay extra for it. Also, heated handlebars, there's a button for that, but they don't do anything because you got to pay extra for that. Also, Apple CarPlay, why don't more bikes have that? I don't want to listen to music or a podcast or surf the web. I just want to have high quality Google Maps always on my screen. And it doesn't have that, which I think is a bit of a missed opportunity. Ducati, in fact, all of the bike world, sort it out. I suppose we can probably forgive that because this isn't really a commuter bike. What this is an absolutely fantastic sport bike that was designed to have you smiling like a lunatic inside your helmet.
This is just lovely. Ducatis are fantastic things. The big thing for me is how light they are, and this thing takes it to a new level. It's the lightest Ducati Panigale ever, and you really feel that. It's like riding a bicycle. All right, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's just so chuckable. It just reacts exactly how you want it to do, really quickly as well. The riding position with the slightly higher bars is something I really like. I feel really comfortable on the bike, and when I slam on the brakes, which are incredibly powerful by the way, I actually feel more secure on this than I did on the V4. Definitely don't feel like I'm going to fly off the end of the bike. The throttle pickup is great as well, really responsive, not nervous, to the point where I feel really comfortable riding in sport mode rather than in road mode. Road has a few more safety nets in place by default, but the grip and the traction is so inherently good on this bike that you feel really confident. The quick shifter, incredible. Up and down the box seamlessly, just kick the bar or lift it up and it shifts gear. Stunning, really good. One of the best systems I've ever used. The suspension, wonderful. Obviously, you'd think they'd shine on the track especially, but we've got some really bumpy B roads in the UK and they do such a good job of soaking up the worst of it. As I said, this bike's fully capable on track, but it doesn't feel noticeably worse than any other road bike I've ridden. In fact, in some cases, it might even feel better than a lot of bikes. This suspension is worth every penny.
In the bends, when you're leaning, the suspension isn't able to do as good a job as it could be if it was upright. Suspension works up and down, not side to side of course. But Ducati has engineered in some flexibility into the chassis itself. This subtle, almost imperceptible flexing helps to improve your turn-in, grip, and the bike's ability to absorb unexpected bumps when you're in the bends.
So it's really good in the bends. When you're on a straight and you wind on the throttle, goodness me, it just flies. I can sit here and tell you that I wouldn't want the extra horsepower. You never turn down more power, but honestly, you don't need it. It's just so rapid.
With this, Ducati may have created a bike that seems like a step backwards on those it replaces. But honestly, we needn't have worried. Yes, it will be slightly slower than the previous V2S, but it is perhaps arguably better to ride and certainly offers no less joy.
Yeah, sign me up. I feel like I'm cheating on cars with this one. I don't care though. This is absolutely brilliant. Ducati, baby. Let's go.